The Mentalist is one of the best crime procedurals out there, filled with great characters, crazy cases, insane criminals, and a very polished story. So today I will go over the entire story of The Mentalist, starting with giving you the context behind this amazing show. The Mentalist is a crime procedural drama following Patrick Jane, a former celebrity psychic turned consultant for law enforcement. In truth, Jane is not psychic. He's a keen observer and mental manipulator who uses skills like cold reading and hypnosis to solve crimes. His motive for joining the California Bureau of Investigation is deeply personal. 5 years before the series, Jane appeared on TV and boasted of helping profile a serial killer called Red John, who, in retaliation, murdered Jane's wife and young daughter. Devastated, Jane renounced his fraudulent psychic act and vowed to hunt down Red John by assisting the CBI. I highly recommend you watch the entire show by yourself and then come back to my channel, but without further ado, let's get into the entire story of The Mentalist. Season 1 establishes Patrick Jane's role within the CBI and the initial hints of the Red John case. By the series premiere, Jane has already joined Lisbon's team as an independent consultant, lending his keen observational talents to routine murder investigations. In the pilot, Jane helps solve a double homicide by noticing subtle clues that the killer tried to misdirect them with Red John's calling card, a blood-red smiley face at the crime scene. This confirms for Lisbon's team that the infamous Red John is still at large, and it reveals Jane's personal stake. Red John is the fiend who murdered Jane's family years ago. Though Lisbon is initially skeptical of Jane's rule-bending style, his results speak for themselves. He cracks tough cases with insane mind games, from quickly identifying suspects' lies to orchestrating elaborate traps that expose the guilty. The CBI colleagues each develop a rapport with Jane. Stoic ex-military agent Cho isn't a fan of Jane's theatrics, but comes to trust his insights. Rigsby is impressed by Jane's mind tricks, and naive Van Pelt, the rookie, is curious about Jane's past as a fake psychic.
There's no such thing as real psychics.
I beg to differ. My cousin Yolanda's a psychic.
Your cousin is deluded or dishonest or both.
Hey, steady.
I don't know. He's entitled to his opinion. He's wrong, though.
Through cases like a missing child in Redwood or a winery murder in Red Handed, we see Jane's tactics range from hypnosis to clever ruses, often skirting protocol, yet delivering justice. Lisbon frequently has to defend Jane to CBI Director Virgil Manelli, even as she privately struggles with his cavalier attitude. By mid-season, it's clear that Jane's outward charm masks a haunted man. Whenever a case even remotely connects to Red John, his focus becomes intense, even obsessive. This dynamic sets the stage for Red John's mind games to come. Amid the standalone cases of Season 1, a few key episodes drive forward the Red John saga. One pivotal chapter is Red John's Friends, where Patrick Jane goes to extraordinary lengths for a lead on his nemesis. In that episode, an imprisoned man named Jared Renfrew claims to have information on Red John and manipulates Jane into helping exonerate him. Jane, desperate for any clue, even temporarily quits the CBI to pursue this deal. He succeeds in freeing Renfrew, but underestimates Red John's reach. The very day Renfrew is released, Red John strikes first. Renfrew is found murdered before he can reveal anything, with Red John's trademark painted smiley on the wall. I made a video going over every person Red John has killed, so make sure to watch that video right after this one for more lore about this heinous monster. This episode is a harsh lesson for Jane. Even outside prison walls, potential informants aren't safe from Red John's long shadow. Meanwhile, Jane's pursuit of Red John strains his relationships at the CBI. Lisbon worries Jane is too personally involved and risking too much. We see Jane's normally cheerful demeanor darken when Red John is in play. By mid-season, Red John has directly intervened in Jane's life twice. The serial killer remains an unseen menace, monitoring Jane's actions. This cat-and-mouse undercurrent runs beneath otherwise unrelated cases. Jane also encounters fraudulent psychics like Christina Fry. Each brush with Red John or his copycats only intensifies Jane's resolve to catch him, setting up a confrontation in the season finale. The Season 1 finale delivers the first face-to-face encounter between Patrick Jane and Red John in a tense showdown that reveals the killer's calculating cruelty. The CBI team investigates the murder of a young woman, Emma Plaskett, whose toenails were eerily painted with her own blood. Looking to the sky, Jane and Lisbon see smoke overhead turn into Red John's signature smiley face. Jane realizes Red John is taunting him, recreating an element from his family's murder because Jane's late wife's toenails had similarly been painted, something Red John did to enrage and punish Jane. The case quickly becomes a personal trap. Emma's twin sister, Maya, is missing and presumed the next target. Investigating a lead, Jane meets Rosalind Harker, a blind woman who claims to have been romantically visited by a man named Roy, whom Jane and Lisbon suspect was Red John using an alias. Rosalind provides a sensory description of Roy and mentions he had a friendly associate called Dumar. This gives the team its first concrete portrait of Red John and a new trail. The climax unfolds at a remote farmhouse tied to the suspects. Patrick Jane ends up held at gunpoint by the local Sheriff Hardy, who reveals himself as Dumar, Red John's inside friend. Hardy has abducted Maya and admits this was all orchestrated by Red John. Lisbon and the CBI arrive, freeing Maya and saving Jane. In the chaos, Sheriff Hardy breaks free of custody and aims at Lisbon, forcing Jane to shoot and kill Hardy to protect her. This finale solidifies Red John as a theatrical mastermind. The stage is set for an even more obsessive pursuit in Season 2. Season 2 opens with shakeups at the CBI and the Red John investigation. After the deadly trap in the finale, CBI Director Virgil Minelli decides to reassign the Red John case to Agent Sam Bosco. Bosco is an old-school investigator who deeply distrusts Jane's tactics. This move sidelines Jane from his own vendetta, creating immediate friction. Lisbon remains the boss of her team, but Bosco now runs a separate Red John task force, and he pointedly keeps Jane away from any Red John evidence. Jane bristles at this arrangement and even considers leaving the CBI, but ultimately stays. He can't walk away from any chance to monitor Red John. Early Season 2 episodes highlight this tension. When a case overlaps with Red John, Bosco pointedly tells Jane to back off. Agent Bosco isn't antagonistic without reason. He sees Jane as reckless and too emotionally invested in Red John. In one exchange, Jane pointedly warns Bosco that Red John doesn't make mistakes, he doesn't leave clues.
Red John doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't leave clues. If you have new evidence, it's because he wants you to have it. The question isn't what does it mean, it's why did he give it to you? That's deep.
Meanwhile, life in the CBI carries on. Lisbon's team continues solving weekly cases, and an office romance brews between Rigsby and Van Pelt. By mid-season, their secret dating becomes an open secret among colleagues even though it's against department policy. This subplot adds personal stakes, especially when new unit boss Madeline Hightower arrives later and enforces a strict no fraternization rule. The first half of Season 2 ramps up Jane's frustration. He is solving plenty of cases but making zero headway on his nemesis, thanks to Bosco's wall of silence. That situation is about to change in bloody fashion, recentering the Red John hunt around Jane. Meanwhile, Kimball Cho's past is explored in Season 2, revealing he was a member of the Avon Park Playboys gang nicknamed Iceman. A former gang friend's murder prompts Cho to investigate off the books and confront his old life. It's shown that Cho turned away from gang violence, and he even once shot his gang's leader to prevent a crime, highlighting how far he's come from his gang days. Midway through Season 2, the Red John storyline explodes with tragedy in the episode His Red Right Hand. Red John proves he will do anything to keep the upper hand. In a shocking turn, Agent Bosco's entire team is murdered inside CBI headquarters as they pursue Red John. Bosco and two of his agents are gunned down in their own office. The culprit is revealed to be Rebecca Anderson, Bosco's assistant, who was secretly a devoted Red John operative. Acting on Red John's orders, Rebecca infiltrated and betrayed Bosco's unit, killing them to reclaim control of the case for her master. The fallout is huge. CBI Director Minelli is so distraught by the loss of his agents on his watch that he resigns, and Madeline Hightower is appointed as the new regional boss. Jane is racked with guilt. Bosco's last act was essentially returning the Red John case to Jane, the very outcome Red John intended. It's a bitter victory. Red John manages to silence Rebecca too. While in custody, an unknown person brushes by her and poisons her, leaving her dead at the spot. Lisbon and the others, meanwhile, are shaken, realizing a mole was in their office. They tighten ranks under Hightower's strict leadership. Now fully back on the case, Jane is keenly aware that Red John is willing to slaughter cops and civilians to toy with him. The balance has shifted. Red John wanted Jane, not Bosco, as his opponent. As Season 2 moves toward its finale, Jane is back in the driver's seat of the investigation, exactly where Red John wants him. The Season 2 finale is a chilling encounter that brings Patrick Jane face-to-face with Red John at last, although with a few horrifying twists. The episode's setup involves the disappearance of psychic Christina Fry. Christina, a recurring character and Jane's one-time rival, made the grave mistake of publicly taunting Red John. By the finale, Christina Fry goes missing, a presumed Red John abduction. While Lisbon's team searches for her, Jane walks into a trap of his own. He gets kidnapped by two copycat killers looking to bait Red John. These criminals, obsessed fans of Red John, capture Jane hoping to impress the serial killer. Red John, almost unbelievably, intervenes, not to harm Jane, but to save him. In a dark abandoned house, Jane watches in shock as a figure in black wearing a grotesquely smiling mask appears and swiftly dispatches Jane's captors. Red John shoots one kidnapper dead and stabs the other, all while reciting lines from William Blake's poem, The Tiger, in an eerily gentle tone.
Tiger, tiger, burning bright,
in the forests of the night.
It's the first time since the series began that we and Jane see Red John in the flesh. By the time Lisbon and the team arrive, they find Jane traumatized but alive, with only the bodies of the imposters on the floor. This is also the episode that confirms Christina Fry's fate. Red John targeted her for her boldness. In the aftermath of the finale, Jane is left rattled. Red John saved his life only to prove he controls the game. As season 3 begins, the CBI has a new director, Gail Bertram. The stage is set for season 3 with a more emboldened, yet deeply unnerved Patrick Jane. Season 3 begins in the emotional fallout of the previous meeting with Red John. Patrick Jane has survived being in Red John's clutches, but he is shaken to his core. In the premiere episode, Red Sky at Night, we see Jane deeply traumatized. He even contemplates leaving the CBI.
We're family. What you're doing is a kind of betrayal. A surrender, a defeat. You're letting Red John win.
Lisbon tries to keep him engaged by involving him in a high-profile kidnapping case, and ultimately, Jane's sense of purpose is renewed. He won't rest until Red John is finished, no matter the personal toll. Meanwhile, changes ripple through the CBI. Director Bertram oversees the unit, and Madeline Hightower remains Lisbon's direct superior. Hightower, a sharp and no-nonsense boss, pressures Lisbon to stop Jane's antics, but also gives him latitude because of his success rate. She also strictly enforces the policy against intra-team romance, forcing Rigsby and Van Pelt to cool off their public displays. Under threat of transfer, they actually break up. A new recurring presence is J.J. LaRoche, an internal affairs agent with an enigmatic demeanor who appears when CBI matters turn especially serious. Christina Fry's disappearance still hangs. A few episodes in, cult leader Brett Stiles provides a clue to Christina's whereabouts. Acting on that tip, the team finds Christina alive but in a catatonic state. Red John had kept her and psychologically tortured. She can't recall anything about Red John or her abduction. Early season 3 shows Patrick Jane more somber and determined. The chess game enters a new phase, with Jane more cautious and Red John lying in wait. As season 3 progresses, Red John's unseen influence begins seeping inside the CBI itself, leading to one of the show's most intricate arcs. It starts with the case of Todd Johnson, an assassin who has been murdering law enforcement officers. Johnson is apprehended by Lisbon's team. Jane quickly suspects there's more to Johnson. Under questioning, Johnson hints at a larger agenda.
Tell him I have a secret. Secret only he will understand.
Indeed, it turns out Johnson is another operative of Red John, tasked with killing cops who might one day threaten Red John's network. This is confirmed dramatically when Johnson himself is murdered while in custody. Someone sets him on fire in his cell before he can talk. The brazen killing of Johnson inside CBI HQ screams one thing: Red John has a mole within the CBI. Agent LaRoche is assigned to ferret out this traitor, and everyone is under suspicion. Jane now realizes the significance of Jane keeps this clue secret, but it convinces him that Red John is connected to some conspiracy or organization. For now, Tiger serves as Jane's private compass, telling him which way to look. The corruption runs deep, possibly linking cops, officials, and Red John. Meanwhile, the team grapples with paranoia, knowing a colleague might be a killer. Director Hightower herself gets ensnared in this deadly game. Cleverly, Red John's mole frames Hightower for Todd Johnson's murder, planting evidence to suggest she is the corrupt insider. Hightower must flee when an arrest warrant comes down, and Lisbon quietly believes her boss was set up. This leaves Lisbon's team in a precarious spot. Officially, their own director is a fugitive presumed to be Red John's ally. Unofficially, Jane and Lisbon begin working behind the scenes to clear Hightower and find the real mole. During this arc, several characters who interact with the team become possible suspects, including FBI agent Craig O'Laughlin, who is Agent Van Pelt's new fiancé, and CBI director Gail Bertram. Jane methodically sets traps and watches for slip-ups among those with access. The tension ratchets up with each episode. By late season 3, the investigation ends on a dramatic sting operation to draw out the traitor, setting the stage for an explosive confrontation in the finale. The big season 3 finale, Strawberries and Cream, delivers a number of revelations as Patrick Jane's hunt for the CBI mole comes to an end. With Hightower in hiding and the team secretly assisting her, Jane devises an elaborate trap to expose Red John's operative. He arranges for Hightower to act as bait, hiding out at a remote cabin, and spreads misinformation that she can implicate the real mole. The plan works. The mole takes the bait and comes to eliminate Hightower. In a shocking twist, the traitor is unmasked as Agent Craig O'Laughlin, Van Pelt's fiancé. O'Laughlin reveals his true colors by attempting to assassinate Hightower, but Lisbon and Van Pelt intervene just in time. A gunfight ensues in the cabin. O'Loughlin shoots Lisbon, wounding her, and in the chaos, Van Pelt is forced to kill her own fiancé to stop him. The revelation devastates Van Pelt. She had unwittingly been engaged to a murderer in Red John's network, and it horrifies the rest of the team. More importantly, in the moment, Jane instructs Lisbon to redial O'Loughlin's phone. Down in a crowded shopping mall in Sacramento, a man's phone rings. An average-looking, middle-aged man picks up the phone. Patrick Jane locks eyes on this stranger and feels a surge of certainty. This man is Red John. Incredibly, the man calmly acknowledges it. He keeps Jane at a distance by revealing a revolver hidden in a newspaper he's carrying, aiming it subtly at Jane. The two have a tense standoff. The man, hinting strongly that he is Red John, tells Jane he's tired. He claims he's going to retire, get a new face, a new life, and that Jane should just let him walk away. Jane presses for proof of his identity, so the man leans in and tells him an unbearably personal detail about the murders of Jane's wife and daughter, something only Red John could know. It's the final confirmation. Jane calls after the man as he starts to leave.
Please, wait.
In a sudden, explosive moment, Patrick Jane pulls out his pistol and shoots the man dead in the middle of the mall. The man falls and dies on the spot. As panicked bystanders scream and duck, Jane calmly sits down at a table, picks up a fallen cup of tea, and takes a sip. The season ends on that dramatic note. Patrick Jane, sitting as security guards surround him and arrest him for murder. It's a cliffhanger of enormous consequence. Has Jane truly gotten revenge? And if so, what now? These questions carry directly into season 4. Season 4 opens with Patrick Jane facing the legal and moral consequences of shooting the man he believed was Red John. The premiere picks up moments after the mall shooting. Jane is immediately detained and charged with murder. In custody, Jane freely admits he killed the man, but insists the victim was Red John. Unfortunately for Jane, the evidence is murky. The deceased man's name is revealed to be Timothy Carter, an average citizen with no obvious criminal background. No gun is found on Carter's body at first, and the cell phone records yield nothing to tie him to O'Loughlin's call. To an outside observer and the jury, it appears Jane may have just shot an innocent person in cold blood. Lisbon's team is suspended during the investigation in a tense trial. Even Patrick, normally knowing what to say, struggles to justify his action beyond, "I had the right to kill him. He killed my family." The trial culminates with a surprise break. Lisbon and the team, doing their own sleuthing, find Carter's hidden crimes. They rescue a kidnapped girl from Carter's property, uncovering that Carter was in fact a child abductor, an evil man, if not definitively Red John. Moreover, evidence emerges that someone tampered with the crime scene. A security guard had removed Carter's gun and phone immediately after the shooting. This validates Jane's claim that Carter was armed and dangerous. In court, the rescued girl's testimony of Carter's crimes and Jane's own passionate defense sway the jury. In a dramatic verdict, Jane is found not guilty of murder. Though cleared legally, Jane confesses quietly to Lisbon afterward that he has doubts. Timothy Carter was evil, but he was not Red John. Indeed, soon after, forensic evidence and a visit from blind Rosalind Harker confirm it. Rosalind touches Carter's face in the morgue and says this man was not the Red John she knew. The real Red John is still alive. A new supervisor, young Special Agent Luther Wainwright, is assigned to observe Jane's unit. Jane, meanwhile, outwardly pretends that Red John is dead. He publicly maintains that fiction, hoping Red John might let his guard down. This sets the tone for season 4. Jane's quest has to continue in secret, even as he returns to solving regular cases for the CBI. Meanwhile, Wayne Rigsby's girlfriend Sarah reveals she's pregnant in the episode My Bloody Valentine. Rigsby even proposes marriage, but Sarah declines, insisting he shouldn't propose just because she's pregnant. Later that season, Sarah gives birth to their son Benjamin. Rigsby embraces fatherhood, though Sarah eventually leaves after the events of the season 4 finale. In Season 4's subplot, Cho gets involved with Summer Edgecombe, a bold and unpredictable informer introduced in pink tops. They get into a relationship and work together on some cases. Despite their obvious chemistry, the relationship is unstable. Summer's impulsiveness clashes with Cho's discipline. Things fall apart later, and Summer gets clean and marries someone else. It's one of Cho's most emotional scenes, showing how much he cared about her, but had to let her go. Meanwhile, with Red John presumed dead by most of the world, Patrick Jane spends much of Season 4 playing a delicate double game, pursuing clues to Red John's identity on the sly while convincing others that he's moved on. For a while, Red John himself maintains a low profile, but not for long. Mid-season, Jane encounters a serial killer of a different stripe, James Panzer, the so-called San Joaquin killer who craves the spotlight. In the pivotal episode Blinking Red Light, Jane cleverly gets Panzer into bragging on television, even provocatively suggesting Panzer is inferior to Red John. Shortly after the TV interview, Panzer is found murdered and Red John's blood smiley on the wall. The message is unmistakable. Red John is alive and watching. He killed Panzer as punishment for the comparison and perhaps as a twisted favor to Jane. This marks Red John's first known kill since Carter's death and is a huge proof of life. This is one of my favorite and one of the best episodes in the series. I highly recommend you watch my detailed breakdown of it after this video. FBI agent Susan Darcy comes into play, who is assigned to follow up on the Panzer case. Darcy suspects the truth. If Red John murdered Panzer, then the man Jane shot was not Red John. She begins digging, directly asking Jane if Red John could still be at large. Jane, fearing the investigation will scare Red John off or put Lisbon's team in danger, lies to Agent Darcy, insisting Red John is dead. Darcy isn't fully convinced. Over several episodes, she tests Jane. However, Jane manages to stay out of it, but something fishy is going on. The morgue attendant who helped Rosalind identify Carter turns up dead. Jane sticks to his story, desperately trying to protect his lie. It all builds to a confrontation in the finale, where Jane's secret war with Red John collides with Darcy's investigation. This pressure forces Jane to become more secretive and manipulative than ever, as he prepares a bold gambit to draw Red John out once and for all. Jane decides to fake a mental breakdown and sever ties with the CBI, hoping to smoke out Red John. Jane seemingly goes off the rails. He insults the boss, gets fired, and ends up drinking away in Las Vegas. In Vegas, Jane meets a seductive young woman named Lorelei Martins, only for Lorelei to reveal the next morning that she is an associate of Red John. In fact, Lorelei tells Jane her presence is a gift from Red John, along with an offer. If Jane truly gives up his pursuit and proves his loyalty, Red John wants to be friends. The price of that friendship, Red John demands that Jane kills Lisbon and delivers her head as a trophy. Jane decides to agree to the terms. Unknown to Red John, however, the entire meltdown was staged by Jane and Lisbon to lure Red John out. Lisbon and the team help fake her and Agent Rigsby's deaths. Believing Jane has truly gone nuclear, Red John arranges a personal meeting. He communicates through Lorelei, instructing Jane to meet in a deserted neighborhood. Jane shows up at the point carrying a box. A limousine arrives. Jane boards the limo. Inside, a shadowy figure with a distorted voice greets him from the back seat. Red John congratulates Jane on the ruse of killing Lisbon, but reveals he wasn't completely fooled. At that very moment, Agent Darcy and an FBI team who have been tracking Jane arrest Lisbon's CBI crew instead of Red John. The plan has gone wrong. Jane is now isolated in the limo with Red John, while Lisbon is in handcuffs on the roadside, desperately shouting that Jane is in danger. Red John, realizing the trap, decides to punish Jane. He orders his assistant to cut off Jane's fingers. At the last second, the CBI arrives. In the chaos, the driver is killed and the limo stops. But when the authorities open the back door, they find only Luther Wainwright's corpse, the young CBI boss, with a burner phone taped to his body. Red John murdered and planted Wainwright as a decoy, escaping yet again. The season ends with Lorelei in custody. During her interrogation by Jane and Lisbon, Lorelei stays loyal to Red John, teasing that Jane and Red John are more alike than he knows. Though the operation failed to catch Red John, it yielded a precious asset, Lorelei herself, a living link to the killer. Jane now has a new strategy for Season 5, get Lorelei to give up Red John. Season 4 concludes with the Red John case blown wide open, and Patrick Jane more determined than ever, despite the heavy cost of his gambit. At the start of Season 5, Patrick Jane's top priority is leveraging Lorelei Martins to finally get to Red John. Lorelei is the first Red John operative ever caught alive, and Jane knows she is a potential goldmine of information. However, immediately after her capture, Lorelei is whisked out of CBI custody by the FBI. When we pick up the story, Lorelei has vanished into the federal prison system. Jane grows obsessed with finding her again, convinced that breaking her allegiance is the key. In the episode Red Sails in the Sunset, Jane asks for help. Cult leader Brett Stiles of the Visualized Cult. Stiles has his own shadowy resources and a past connection to Red John. By the way, you should watch my video about the entire story of the Visualized Cult. It's actually insane, but I can't fit it in this video. With Stiles' help, Jane orchestrates an elaborate prison break, freeing Lorelei from federal custody and taking her away to a remote safe house. It's a risky, illegal move, but Jane is betting everything on getting one-on-one time with Lorelei. To crack her, Jane digs into her background and uncovers a tragic secret. Lorelei had a sister, Miranda, who was murdered years ago. Crucially, the case file shows Miranda wrote Roy on the floor as she was dying, a name Red John has used as an alias. Jane presents his bombshell to Lorelei. Red John himself murdered your sister. Lorelei is shaken. In her anguish and anger, Lorelei slips up and delivers a monumental clue. She snaps at Jane and says,
God, you're just like him, you know that? Relentless manipulation.
I am nothing like him.
How would you know? I only wonder why the two of you didn't become lifelong friends the moment you shook hands.
Lorelai has inadvertently revealed that Jane has met Red John in person and even shaken his hand before. This is an insane revelation. Somewhere among Jane's acquaintances or past encounters lies Red John's true identity. Now, armed with this knowledge, Jane compiles a mental list of every male figure he's shaken hands with in the last decade. Lorelai, however, realizes she said too much. Feeling betrayed by both Jane and Red John, she refuses to give the name and demands Jane let her go so she can find and confront Red John herself. Knowing the authorities are closing in, Jane reluctantly allows Lorelai to escape, hoping she might indeed turn on Red John. Over the next batch of episodes, Lorelai goes rogue on her own mission of vengeance. She resurfaces to brutally torture and kill a woman named Julia Howard, a Red John accomplice involved in her sister's death. She then targets Jason Lennon, another accomplice. Jane intercepts Lorelai during her rampage. He doesn't want her to die before revealing Red John. Lorelai says that when she finds Red John, she'll tell Jane who he is. Unfortunately, Red John strikes first. Not long after, Lorelai's body is found. From her, Jane gained two critical pieces for the endgame: Red John's handshake clue and confirmation of a wider web of accomplices. By the end of season 5, Jane has narrowed down a list of suspects. 7 men he's crossed paths. He keeps this list secret from all but Lisbon, fearing what might happen if those men catch wind of it. The hunt now enters its final phase, with Red John's identity almost within Jane's grasp. Throughout Season 5, Patrick Jane quietly works to narrow down and verify the list of 7 suspects who might be Red John. These 7 are all men that Jane has encountered in the past, including Visualize leader Brett Stiles, CBI Director Gail Bertram, Agent Ray Hafner, FBI Agent Reed Smith, Homeland Security Official Bob Kirkland, Sheriff Thomas McAllister, and Forensics Tech Brett Partridge. Jane doesn't immediately reveal these names to his team. He conducts subtle tests and observations first. For example, in The Red Barn, an old case from decades ago is tied to Visualize, 2 bodies found in a barn with Red John's signature smiley painted in blood. The evidence suggests Red John may have once been a member of the Visualize cult. This implicates Brett Stiles or someone close to him. It also explains how Red John recruited so many fanatically loyal operatives over the years. He was effectively running a cult of his own within Visualize. Meanwhile, the Blake Association conspiracy comes further into focus. Agent Bob Kirkland, who had been independently investigating Red John, turns out to have a personal vendetta because Red John apparently killed his twin brother. Kirkland crosses lines by secretly surveilling Jane and even abducting one of Jane's suspects to torture for info. However, Kirkland himself is killed by Reed Smith. This tips Jane off that multiple suspects might be involved in a hidden network of corrupt officials. In the finale, Red John dramatically announces he knows Jane's progress. Red John made Lorelai record a message reading out Jane's 7 suspects list. It's a terrifying moment. The season ends with Patrick Jane and Teresa Lisbon together on this quest. Season 6 opens as a race against time. Patrick Jane intensifies his efforts to uncover the Red John's identity. Red John begins targeting the remaining suspects to cover his tracks. In the premiere, one of Jane's 7 forensic tech, Brett Partridge, is gruesomely murdered while working a crime scene. Red John also catches Lisbon and paints a smiley face on her face, but doesn't kill her. Jane starts secretly profiling his suspects. He notices, for instance, Sheriff McAllister's subtle fear of heights during a case, and tests Visualize leader Stiles' reactions by confronting him about Red John. In one episode, while Jane was testing McAllister to see if he's afraid of heights, he actually saves Jane's life by climbing on the roof and shooting a criminal that had Jane captive. In the same episode, after years of on and off romance, Wayne Rigsby and Grace Van Pelt finally get married. Rigsby seizes the moment to publicly propose to Grace. She accepts, and by the end of the case, the couple gets married in a small ceremony with Lisbon and Cho as witnesses. After all this, we then meet Kira Tinsley, Red John's spy that gets killed by him. Before she died, she managed to hint to Jane that Red John has a tattoo on his shoulder, 3 dots. This gives Jane the upper hand. The tension escalates when a gathering Jane arranges, inviting all remaining suspects to a deserted house under false pretenses, turns into a literal explosion. Jane calls the suspects together, intending to use a clever tell to identify the killer. He wanted to see which of them have the tattoo. Unfortunately, it's revealed that McAllister, Bertram, and Reed have the tattoo. The tattoo was symbolizing the membership of their secret group. Before Jane does anything, a bomb detonates. In the aftermath, 2 more suspects are removed. Visualize leader Brett Stiles and Ray Hafner die while the other 3 run away. Smith gets caught and, fearing for his life, flips on Red John. He confirms that Tiger is the password members use, and that Red John was indeed a high-ranking member of the association, which is how he orchestrated events like Rebecca's poisoning in Bosco's team murder. Smith's confession is golden intel. The Blake Association is a secret network of corrupt law enforcement and officials who protect each other's criminal activity. This leaves two suspects, Gail Bertram and Sheriff Thomas McAllister. They go on the run after the failed meeting. The final chase converges in The Great Red Dragon and Red John, a two-part culmination. After years of mystery, the question of Red John's identity is finally answered midway through Season 6. In the climactic episode Red John, Patrick Jane comes face to face with his nemesis in a showdown that the series had been building towards since the pilot. Jane concludes that Sheriff Thomas McAllister of Napa County is Red John. McAllister has been an unassuming background figure since early on, but fits the profile. Jane arranges a secret gathering at an empty chapel to meet director Gail Bertram. However, it is McAllister who arrives and they kill Bertram. Once alone with Jane, Sheriff McAllister reveals himself as Red John, the serial killer who murdered Jane's family. The moment is tense and surreal. Jane is finally looking into the eyes of the monster he's hunted for so long, and it's a genial small-town sheriff with a faint smile. Jane manages to let go of a pigeon that he was hiding under his suit, and McAllister's phobia kicks in, distracting him. Jane gets his gun, Red John starts running, and Jane chases him. It's a really intense chase that lasts quite a bit. However, Red John being wounded, he falls down on the ground. Jane then starts choking him. It's a silent, raw, and emotional moment. Red John tries to beg for his life, but Jane doesn't want to listen. He then kills Red John with his bare hands. Jane calls Lisbon, says it's done, and then runs away. The Red John saga finally ends. CBI shuts down and Jane disappears, but the story doesn't end here. After all the fake-outs, mind games, and tragedy, Red John, the serial killer who cast a shadow over 6 seasons, is gone for good. Jane's world, and the Mentalist itself, can finally move on. With Red John dead and the Blake Association exposed, Season 6 enters a transitional period that essentially resets the series. In the immediate aftermath, the CBI is shut down by federal authorities amid the corruption scandal. After a 2-year time jump, we next see Jane living a quiet, low-key life on a tropical island. Back in the US, former CBI agent Teresa Lisbon has become a small-town police chief. Cho gets a job at the FBI. This could have been the end of the story, but a new chapter begins when the FBI, led by Agent Dennis Abbott, tracks Jane down. Abbott sees value in Jane's skills and offers him a deal: immunity for the unlawful killing of Red John if Jane will work for the FBI as a consultant. Jane agrees, but on his terms. He negotiates Lisbon's employment with the FBI as well, not wanting to work without his trusted partner. Thus, midway through Season 6, Jane returns to the United States and joins the FBI as a consultant, reuniting with Lisbon in the process. 2 new team members are introduced: analyst Jason Wiley, a tech-savvy and upbeat young agent, and Agent Kim Fisher, a capable investigator who initially recruited Lisbon. A charming shift occurs in Jane's demeanor. With his vendetta fulfilled, he's more at ease, even playful, and his affection for Lisbon becomes more evident. Early in the FBI arc, a case involving former CBI agents being targeted by a killer draws out Rigsby and Van Pelt. Van Pelt gets kidnapped by Richard Heibach. He was a suspect in the San Joaquin killer case and later tortured by Kirkland. He swore that he will take his revenge on the CBI. Van Pelt gets saved, but they decide that's it for their involvement in any cases. Their emotional departure in episode White as the Driven Snow closes the book on those characters, a bittersweet moment for Jane and Lisbon to say goodbye to longtime friends. Meanwhile, a subtle but significant development is Lisbon's personal life. She begins dating a federal agent named Marcus Pike. Marcus is kind and earnest, and after some time he asks Lisbon to move to Washington, D.C. with him, and even proposes marriage. This forces both Lisbon and Jane to confront feelings they've long buried. Jane realizes, almost too late, that he can't imagine his life without Teresa Lisbon. In the Season 6 finale Bluebird, as Lisbon is literally boarding a plane to follow Pike, Jane makes a dramatic last-minute dash through the airport and confesses his love to Lisbon.
The truth, Teresa, is that I can't imagine waking up knowing that I won't see you.
This heartfelt moment is the true conclusion of Season 6, signaling a new era for the show's final season. One not about Red John or vengeance, but about Jane and Lisbon's future together. In Season 7, Dennis Abbott is blackmailed by his former DEA boss, Bill Peterson, over a dark secret from Abbott's past. Years earlier in Rio Bravo, Abbott shot a cartel leader during an unsanctioned operation. Peterson now threatens to expose this, jeopardizing Abbott's career. In the episode Copper Bullet, Jane and the team outsmart Peterson, end the blackmail, and save Abbott's career. In the meantime, Michelle Vega joins as a FBI rookie. In the middle of Season 7, The Mentalist delivers one of its most shocking moments, the death of a core team member, which sends brings Patrick Jane into questioning. In the episode Nothing Gold Can Stay, the team is pursuing a group of armored car robbers who have shown willingness to kill. During a tense stakeout-turned-shootout at a rural diner, young agent Michelle Vega is shot in the line of duty. Vega was introduced beforehand, joining the FBI with Cho as her mentor and Viley as her possible love interest. But tragically, Vega does not survive. For Jane, who has been trying to avoid loss and pain since Red John's resolution, this is a devastating blow. Losing Vega has reawakened the trauma of losing his family. The idea of losing Lisbon in a case is something he finds unbearable. Jane tells Lisbon he plans to quit the FBI, urging her to come somewhere safe with him. Jane confesses that after Vega's death, he was overwhelmed by the thought that it could have been you. It also sets the stage for the series finale, making Jane more determined to cherish the life he has now. Little does he know, one more deadly threat is lurking that will test that future in the show's very last storyline. In the final stretch of Season 7, The Mentalist raises the stakes with one last perilous case, a serial killer storyline that hits close to home for Patrick Jane. This arc revolves around a murderer nicknamed Lazarus, introduced in the episode Brown Shag Carpet. Lazarus is unlike Red John. He's not an enigmatic mastermind, but rather a deeply disturbed individual named Joseph Keller who believes he can communicate with the dead. Keller's gruesome signature involves harvesting organs from his victims in a delusional quest to resurrect his deceased serial killer father. Jane has a risky plan to draw out Lazarus. He volunteers himself as bait by feigning interest in the killer's psychic claims. Jane publicly pretends to be a psychic again, claiming on a radio show that he can contact spirits and would welcome Lazarus to reach out. This works a little too well. Lazarus calls into the radio show to taunt Jane, and the FBI narrowly traces the call before it cuts off. Unfortunately, Keller is cunning, and he sets a trap. As Jane leaves the radio station, Lazarus abducts Patrick Jane. Jane awakens captive in Lazarus's hideout. Keller, who swings between eerie calm and violent outbursts, informs Jane that he intends to use him to contact his dead father's spirit. When Keller steps out, Jane manages to free himself from his cuffs and improvise a trap using a gas line and a light bulb. As Keller re-enters the storage room Jane's in, Jane triggers a small explosion with the gas, blasting Keller back and setting the house on fire. Lisbon arrives and she rushes into the burning house and helps Jane out of the rubble. Keller's body isn't recovered at the scene, leading to a tense epilogue in the finale. In White Orchids, Jane proposes marriage to Lisbon, saying he doesn't want to wait another moment to start the rest of their lives. She accepts, of course. They quickly arrange an intimate wedding at a lakeside house that Jane had purchased. However, Joe Keller survived the explosion. As Lisbon and Jane prepare to wed, Keller goes on a violent rampage to find Jane. The FBI learns Keller is alive, prompting Abbott to quietly secure the wedding venue with undercover agents. On the big day, Lisbon walks down the aisle in a simple white gown and Keller manages to get in. But just as he's about to strike, he's surrounded and apprehended by a swarm of FBI agents. With Keller finally in custody, the last threat is neutralized. Now nothing stands in the way of their future. The last scene shows that Teresa is pregnant, giving us a beautiful ending for the series and a chance for Patrick Jane to start over with a new family and a new purpose. And there you have it, the entire story of The Mentalist. I might have missed something. This show has a backstory for each character, great main and filler episodes, so I just couldn't include everything in one video. That's why I highly recommend you watch the show for yourself. And if you already did, go watch some of my other videos on this amazing show. Until the next video, peace.